Let me start off for those that may not be super familiar with the situation with coffee in Ethiopia. Can you sort of give us an idea of the baseline? What was the situation in the communities that you're working with when you first started that work? How did you find these communities when you began?
When we began, there was very little that had been done. Actually, I remember very well because I was still in TechnoServe. Not a single international organizations had worked here because most of the places where we work, they are unreachable, they are unpassable, the infrastructure is not very good. And so when we did our first training, we actually trained only 4% of women. It was a bit of a shock, and it forced us to go back to the drawing board and think about what we really wanted to achieve and how.
Can you just lay out some of the many, many challenges that women face in the kind of environments where you're working with them, whether this is resistance from family members, whether it's the unequal distribution of household duties that fall all on the backs of the women, and the other sort of the long list of constraints that women have to fight through?
One of the issues is land mainly belongs to men. Women do not own land, and so they don't have a lot of leeway to make a lot of decisions. And because they do not own land, they don't feel the ownership of even the crop that is there. And so we've been trying to educate, emphasize, and sensitize the women because they play a very big role in the coffee farms. They weed, they harvest, they do quite a lot of work. But then when it comes to the training and even when it comes to the finances, they've been left out a lot. Women lack self-belief. So they do work in the coffee, but they don't even count it as if it is work or contribution to coffee. So there's lack of self-belief because of how things have been. We've been deliberate in engaging women and involving women and in making them understand that they are also part and parcel of this. We've also been deconstructing a lot of cultures, including it's only men who go for training and women should just be told what happened in the training because actually most women were not even being told what was happening in the training.
I'd love for you to say a little more about it, of having women and men come to training together, because I think for those people who haven't been familiar with this, the idea that when you invite farmers, say we're having a training for farmers, only men would show up. And even if you train the men and the women are working alongside them on their farms, I know our research showed that the men were not transmitting that information to their wives as we hoped they would.
Even for the women themselves, when they hear that there's a training, the assumption is that it's the husbands or the men who should go, and then for them they should just learn from the men. Because we also realize if you talk to the women alone, then they still have to get permission from the households because of the way the culture plays here. So we actually one time called the men to a meeting to explain to them the importance of involving their wives in the trainings. And I remember asking them, you have a lot of work that you do besides just the coffee farm. And sometimes when you leave your coffee farm, you find your children and your wives have done a lot of work. They have weeded and all that. Do you ever ask yourself if they did it the right way? Do you think if you have them go to the trainings, they would probably do a better job? And instead of cutting the roots when you're weeding, or instead of harvesting unripe coffee, you would harvest better coffee. And overall, you would profit from the work that women put in the farms as well. So that's where we began in terms of involving the men, in terms of also involving the women, and in terms of making the women feel comfortable and that they're giving good work or good labor to coffee, and hence they should do it well. We are very accommodative because we know women sometimes they could give an excuse of children, and that is why they don't attend training. So we welcome them together with the children, and we make sure that we take care of the children as they also participate in training. We also make sure that the trainings happen at a time when women are available. So we adjust so much. We are very flexible to make sure that we reach out to as many women and men as possible, because that is the only way we can have a critical mass and critical change of behavior and of how things are done on the ground.
I think you wanted to talk about the finances of coffee farming and how women may share in the management of that as a result of this, if I understood you correctly.
A few years ago, we introduced more training modules besides just coffee farm agronomy. So we introduced some modules with collaboration with Nespresso called Academy Plus. So in these modules, we train farmers on gender equality, both men and women. So we train them on how to make decisions jointly, the roles and responsibilities of both men and women, and how those define us, how the society defines those roles. Both men and women can achieve better success if they work together. Both men and women can do better if they work jointly and if they make household decisions together. And so we introduced these modules, and actually this catapulted our women participation in the training. And it's at that time we came from very low women participation to 43% by the close of the project, because they felt like, oh, actually we can make decisions together. Actually, this is not exactly just my husband's farm, it's our farm. And if I put a little more effort, I could also benefit from this.
You mentioned Nespresso a few times in your remarks, and I just wanted to clarify for anybody who's wondering. TechnoServe works in partnership with many of the world's leading coffee companies. I would like to especially call out Nespresso. We've been working with them for more than a decade in many countries. I've been very close to that partnership. I sit on a sustainability advisory board that advises Nespresso senior leadership on sustainability issues. And I just have to say that the seriousness with which Nespresso treats these issues, the real amounts of money they invest in farmer welfare and thinking about issues like gender imbalances and women's economic empowerment in their supply chain is really world-class and very impressive. Talk a little bit about where these communities are ending up. What do these communities look like now as compared to when you began working with them?
And our numbers have increased from 4% with the Nespresso project trainings that we did in 2021, 2022. 2023, we actually reached 43%. And I have visited women who have even started small businesses, and these businesses are growing. They were small, now I don't call them small, because they came from just staying at home and doing the normal chores to also earning an income through establishing business, through taking more care of the coffee as if it belonged to them. And even the men opened up. The men realized that when the women are empowered, the household grows and the household becomes better. So now we are working with empowered women and men who work together and who earn more together. Women feeling like they're more responsible, men giving more leeway and I mean giving more freedom to women to practice, and the households are growing and big plans to take their kids to college, to build new houses and all that. So impactful changes, like just a reason to wake up every morning to go and hear these stories.